Hey everyone. So this is going to be the first video in the new series I discuss in the And Now for Something Completely Different video, where we take a look at historical figures and discuss how they can influence our lives today and what we can learn from them today. In that video, I promised the first video was going to be on Vlad Dracul. The research for that is taking a lot longer than I anticipated. But in the meantime, I want to discuss the P.R.B. So what is the P.R.B? The P.R.B stands for Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood. It was a art movement that was founded in 1848. It was created by 7 young artists, students, that wanted to change the art world. And a couple of the names of the founding brothers you might recognize: Dante Gabriel Rossetti, William Rossetti, William Holman Hunt, John Everett Millais, Thomas Woolner, James Collinson, and Frederick George Stevens. And when I say they were young artists and sculptors and poets, I mean they were young. Dante Gabriel was 20 years old. Millais was only 19. They founded this art movement for a few reasons. At the time, the arbiter of English art was the Royal Academy, and they basically distinguished what was great art. If you wanted to be a great artist, you had to go through the Royal Academy, and they had a very formulaic, at least the P.R.B. believed, they had a very formulaic approach to what constituted good art. So the Brotherhood wanted to bring art back to originality. They wanted to create something different, something new than what was essentially the commercialization of art. And they were influenced by quite a few subjects that helped form their philosophy of what art should be. So they essentially wanted to bring art back into marriage with truth. They wanted to inspire, and part of their ideals was part spirituality in their painting, a new sense of actuality, and they were inspired by Christianity, legends of King Arthur. You'll find a lot of poems, a lot of art depicting scenes from Le Morte d'Arthur. By Greek and Roman mythology, one of the poets they looked up to was John Keats. So there's quite a dash of romanticism in their subject as well. A lot of what we know the P.R.B. to be is through their visual art, through their paintings, through their sketches. But they permeated poetry. One of their founding members was, and only was, a sculptor. So the Brotherhood permeated quite a few stratas of art, of the art world. But definitely their most distinctive styles are their paintings and sketches. So the P.R.B., as I mentioned, consisted of these founding 7 members. Although, as time went on, more members, official and unofficial, would swell their ranks. Eventually, Dante and William's sister Christina would, under a pen name and through the editorialization of William, would join the P.R.B. One of the Christmas songs that we all know and love, In the Bleak Midwinter, was set to music by Gustav Holst, who of course wrote the Planet Suites. But the original text is a Christina Rossetti poem. So as time went by, the actual movement in its cohesive entity only lasted 5 years. But in those 5 years, the artists were extremely busy getting their philosophy out into the world through art. They created a very short-lived newsletter called The Germ. It only lasted, I believe it was 4 or 5 issues, and it was, for the most part, personally funded by William Hunt. But it was very short-lived, and it would include editorials and critiques of their art and others' art. It would include passages of their poetry. And as time went on, the Brotherhood was mostly rejected and even protested heavily against. Charles Dickens was probably the most vocal hater of the movement. And essentially, as the Brotherhood went on, they were not accepted in the art world at all. None of their paintings, I say none, but a couple of their paintings sold, were even admired by the Academy and by leading figures of the day. But for the most part, they were completely rejected, criticized, spat on. Christ in the Home of His Parents was probably their most reviled and disparaged works. That all changed when John Ruskin championed their movement. Now, John Ruskin was the art critic of the day. He was well known in Germany and France, and he came to their aid. One of the Brotherhood's friends wrote to Ruskin, asking him to lend their voice in support of the Brotherhood. He initially didn't like the subject matter, didn't like the style of the Brotherhood, but he decided to champion their cause when he was inspired and attracted by their truth to nature. And that's an important aspect of the P.R.B's philosophy. Is, of course, sure, we want to be original. We don't want to join in the homogeny of what art has become. But there is still a truth to nature, a truth to realism. And that's what inspired Ruskin to champion their cause. At great risk to himself, the P.R.B. was it was a reviled branch of art. It was a reviled movement. And as I mentioned, Ruskin was the art critic of the day. So he was willing to put his reputation, his future, his good name on the line for the Brotherhood. And as time went by, as I mentioned, the Brotherhood only lasted a handful of years. Woolner left for gold digging in Australia. Hunt left for Egypt. Millais eventually would defect to the Academy. But later, others would swell their ranks, and their ideals still remained and left a lasting impression on the art world. Not just in England, but it later permeated France, Germany as well, and it influenced so many other artists, both peers of the Brotherhood and also down through history. Tennyson, a lot of his poetry was inspired by Pre-Raphaelite ideals. He was a great friend of the Brotherhood. Ford Madox Brown, Walter Deverell, John Waterhouse. These are other artists that threw in their lot with the Brotherhood or were directly inspired by the Brotherhood. And their works, not just the original Brotherhood, but the later others who would swell their ranks, grew more and more respected as time went on. Of course, nowadays we have some very, very influential works that you might not know were Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood, but they're very famous artworks that we all admire today. And back when the Brotherhood founded their group, they started as sort of a mysterious society. They would leave P.R.B. initials hidden in their artwork. And this lended to their mystique and their aura in the beginning days of the Brotherhood. So what can we learn from the Brotherhood today? How can they influence us today? That's kind of the point of this series, is looking at historical figures and what lessons we can take from them. And I believe we can learn a few things from this Brotherhood. Never back down from your beliefs. As I mentioned, they were reviled by their contemporaries. But for the most part, especially Dante Gabriel Rossetti, always stayed true to Pre-Raphaelite ideals. He believed very strongly in these ideals. And even when the Academy wanted him to back down, to change his art, he would not. Of course, John Ruskin, as I mentioned, was willing to put his reputation on the line for what he eventually came to believe in. Even when you're not in vogue, even when your philosophy is not in vogue, find like-minded individuals and just keep pressing on. Also, I would say just create art, especially in today's world with AI and corporate art creating strongholds in in visual media. The time has come for a new revolution in art, for champions of art to step up and basically save the world from a homogeny of gray, diasporous art. So be unique, but hold still to true beauty. Um, if you are a aspiring artist, whether that's visual arts or poetry or movie scripts, whatever art you choose, create your own unique spin on it, but still hold true to nature, to actuality, and to true beauty. To conclude, I want to read a poem by William Bell Scott. He was one of the ancillary P.R.B. brothers. It's called Art for Art's Sake. Art for art's sake, very well. Your picture you don't care to sell? Yes, yes I do, and thus I try to paint so bright they want to buy. Art for art's sake, then I fear you want no sympathetic tear from the stalls and boxes here. Yes, yes I do, I write it so, 100 nights the crowd shall go. Art for art's sake, heavens, once more you'd say again things said before. And pray why not? I wish I could stand as Shakespeare Fletcher stood. Nay, dear aspirant, rather write as Shakespeare were he here tonight. That would be far more worth prizing. But who can rise to that high pass? Who can rise? Alas, alas, Shakespeare's little thought of rising. And that poem basically sums up the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood's ideals and what we can learn from them now. Don't create art for art's sake, just for the sake of creating art, but hold true to ideals. Don't think about rising, don't think about trying to be the next Shakespeare, rather create what you believe in. And if it's meant to be, then your art will, even though it might not be accepted today, it will go on and echo through eternity. Create art because you believe in that art. Thank you so much for watching. Comment down below what other historic individuals you'd like to see videos about. I do have quite a long list of people that I'm writing scripts for. Of course, Dracula being the first one. Hopefully it won't be too much longer on that one. But let me know what you think about the video in the comments. Subscribe, like, share. Thank you so much.